My name is Jordan Weaver.
And I'm Lacey Weaver. Thanks so much for joining us. The first thing that we want you to do is to take out your phone and download this Shiloh Ranch Church app.
You're going to hear a lot of moving pieces, YouTube channel, 1017 Project. There's going to be a lot of things mentioned, but ultimately our goal is to start moving people towards biblical literacy, the gospel of Jesus, who he says he is in his word, what his word means, and what that means for us. And so with everything else that you're going to have going on around you, ultimately our goal would be that you understand Jesus on a deeper level based on what his word says.
Amen. So, I am going to pray that church is fun for a bit here because I know what material is coming about halfway through, and we kind of need to be in a good mood before it gets here. So, hey, and Christmas, like it's Christmas. This is going to be the Christmas service in Wickenburg. So if you're in Wickenburg, or if you guys want to go to Wickenburg, you can see it twice. I would invite you all to go check it out. I won't be there, but they will be. Merry Christmas. Doing Christmas songs, it's funny. There's such a, I mean, if I'm being honest, being a grown man, you know, you come to church and do Christmas songs, and there's a little part of you. You don't act all judgy and be like, I never. But you sing Christmas songs, and instantly there's almost like a childlike nature to church. And I don't think that's bad. I think it's kind of a break from the, like I said, I'm okay with there being a lighter atmosphere to church. Let me tell you what happened this week. I'm going to tattle on myself. I was driving to the airport, and we stopped for fuel. And a guy walks up to me, and he says, hey, man, I'm trying to get to wherever. Have you ever been to a gas station? It happens all the time. I'm trying to get to wherever. I'm broke. Can you help me out with some gas? I'm like, hey, it's Christmas season, right? And, you know, this is the time where people are more generous. Everybody's more giving. So I was like, hey, man, just fill your car up. I'll fill your car up for you. Now, if you're thinking, oh, don't break your elbow patting yourself on the back. I was having a moment of generosity. Now, listen. Normally, if I were to ever do something like this, I would never say a word about it. If I ever do something out of the ordinary, I don't like for people to know because I've got a reputation to uphold. And I don't want it getting out that I have. But here's why I'm telling you this morning. Here's the whole story. Ready? I had taken the wrong exit. I was trying to get to the QT, and the QT was not on the exit that I took. So I was on the wrong exit. I went to the wrong gas station. I'd never been there. And when I pull into the diesel pump, a guy pulls in behind me. There's a car in front of me. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. And so I'm going to have to wait for this guy who's in front of me, parked, needing out to get gas before I can leave. So here's why I'm admitting this to you. There's a moment where you can be like, you filled his car up? Our pastor's a nice guy. Buying him a tank of gas actually served my interest in a way that selfishness would not have. Now, we're human. We know how this works. The knee jerk is to go, hey, God, did you see what I did for this nice young man who's obviously fallen on hard times? What I'm finding is like we're in this generous season and everybody, we're giving. We're going to buy the guy behind us in Starbucks their coffee. We're going to pay it forward, right? I'm learning that in my life, this is what I don't like. I'm supposed to be the pastor. I'm supposed to have this figured out so I can teach you people how to live like me. What God is revealing is like, Jordan, listen, he's always kind. I'm sure when God deals with you, he's kind too. But sometimes he will show you things of like, I do that? Have you ever seen a video of yourself or a picture of yourself? And you're like, is that a bad angle? There are times where God kind of turns the screen a little bit and he's like, there's something you need to look at. That even our generosity can be this disguised wolf in sheep clothing, that there are times where I think that we will call ourselves generous as we behave selfishly. I was behaving selfishly even though it cost me $39.87. Imagine selfishness that dresses up as generosity. And you know what we do as people? We're like, yeah, tell these people about how they do that. it blinds itself to us when it's our brand of selfishness, self-serving, because that's the opposite of living for God. Like you either live for God, or it's not you live for God or you live for the devil. Nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, I'm going to go, what do you want, devil? I'm in. You wake up and you measure like, do I want to do what God is saying or do I want to do what I want? There's this constant balance. And there are times where we feel like we'll obey God because that serves my interests. Let's get to the word. It'll make more sense. Luke chapter 10. We're in a series where God says your name twice. It happens 8 times. The numbers that all matter, things that it's never without meaning or significance. Luke chapter 10, verse 38 says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. Now that alone, you could skip over that detail and not catch the fact that for a woman to sit at the feet of Jesus and be taught like a disciple was not real common. It wasn't against the law, like it wasn't outlawed, but it was very frowned upon that a woman could sit and listen as a teacher taught. And so what Jesus was doing actually was elevating Mary's place in the home. Actually, Jesus in this moment, it's not what the sermon's about, but it's a cool detail that Jesus would have been lowering himself to teach a woman, and Mary was there listening. And so there's a lot going on in that moment. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and said, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Verse 41 says, Martha, Martha, there it is. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So this moment where God says our name twice is this covenant moment. It's this personal, intimate. It's not just God speaking to your group. If you remember last week, it's not God speaking to your tribe or to your affiliation or to your gender. That God, when he speaks to you, he speaks to you. And when God speaks to you, he knows who he's talking to more than you do. Isn't that an interesting thought that when God speaks to you, he will speak to you with more truth than you speak to yourself with? Is that scary to anybody? That sometimes you speak to yourself, but you lie? You know that when you lie to yourself, you always believe it? I guess I was generous. Come on, you take a guess? Sure. But the honesty was like, okay. Because if you think about it, what was I going to do? Can you help me with some gas? Nope, I guess I'll just sit here. I love that Jesus doesn't speak to her gender. There were times that Jesus would speak to someone's gender, said woman. You look through the Bible, there are times that Jesus would say Pharisees, groups, people, you. There were times where he would say you. He would say it like at the tomb of Lazarus when he said, where did you lay Lazarus' body? He was talking to Martha, but also talking to a group. Where did you put his body? But he doesn't speak to the general. He speaks to the specific, and he says, Martha, Martha. In a way that was so personal and so meaningful that if those were the only 2 words that he had said, that it would have meant something to her in the same way that will mean something to you. There are times where God will get your attention and you've had a moment with God, and it doesn't even matter what he says. It's just the reality that God sees you and knows where you are and that you're never hidden and that you're never lost. That had to be God. You ever have those moments? That's a God thing. I was thinking God's got this funny way of making sure that you know when you've had a moment. Martha, Martha. To understand what God is speaking to Martha, we have to understand ourselves. We're capable of acting in our own self-interest, or in another way of saying that would be selfishness. We can act selfishly and then paint it generosity colored. And we will be selfish and we will want credit for it. We will want credit. We will act in a way that benefits us, and then we will want God to bless us for it. Now, I understand this is not like a super fun sermon, because as we go along and we start to look at examples, then there are times where if you're like me, you start to go, oh no, I don't think he's talking about. I think this might be something that I do. We will act selfishly, but we want credit for it. And we will believe in that moment, we can believe that we are generous people. If somebody were to go, are you a generous person? You'd go, oh yeah. And you'd start listing what? You'd start listing aspects of your life where generosity is present. Oh, of course I give. Sure. Are you a generous person? Yeah. So what do we do? What do we do in our lives if the word were to confront us? And what I mean by that is, what do we do if we find in the word something that doesn't match our approach? What happens if we ever learn something in the Bible and it disagrees with us? Let me tell you, we've got, just some perspective. I just want you guys to hear some numbers for a second. We've got hundreds of people that are attending Shiloh Ranch on a weekend in person. Hundreds. We've got hundreds who watch online. We've got hundreds who, literally every week, we've got more people than even lived in my hometown growing up that call this place home on some level. And you go, well, why would you mention that? Here's why. Because the most genuine thing, if you want to know what happens at Shiloh that's genuine, let me tell you, it's not this. This is good. This is great. I'm glad everybody's here. I know that God speaks to us in these settings. I know he does. I know that we find things in the word. We go, we didn't know that was there. Oh, my word, that is true. I'm wrong. Those kind of moments are powerful. But the most genuine thing that happens in a Shiloh Ranch setting is this, is that a weekday, you're sitting at home and the situation comes to mind that you have a choice. You have a choice. Am I going to do what I want, or am I going to obey the word of God in this moment? Pause for effect. What you learn here is great. What we do by loving each other and being a part of what goes on here, and everybody's got a fingerprint on what happens here, and that is great. That is great. If you're watching online, this idea that God speaks to people through screens it's genuine. We have people that will go to both digital services on a weekend, and they will swear that it's not the same sermon. It's the same word, but God speaks to them differently. There's amazing things that are happening here, but the most genuine is when it changes us. If you are sitting here every week, week after week after week after week, and you're just hearing it, you're not getting it. To get it, you have to change. You have to have that moment where you go, today I am going to choose what God says over what I want. And we go, yeah, I'm a generous person. How often do you lay down self to pick up the word? Oh, that just stings a little, doesn't it? I'm a good person. I'm doing good things. I go to church. I give. I know I'm good. Sounds so ugly when you say it like that, doesn't it? Martha, Martha. When we read it in context, it'll expose selfish obedience. And you go, don't you mean selfish disobedience? See, that's the crazy part. Here's the offensive part of the word. Here's the part of the Bible that'll hurt our feelings when we go home, is that sometimes you are selfishly obedient. Selfishly obedient. I didn't say selfishly disobedient, because when you think of selfishness, you think of disobedience. You think of doing something bad to benefit self, but that's not what's being taught here. The Bible is teaching us that there are times we are selfishly obedient. Ready for the Bible to get very offensive and hurt your feelings? Good, because that's why we need to be in a good mood earlier. We believe that we are good. Intrinsically, it's just it's a human superpower that we have. We don't know how everybody else does it, but we assume that we're good. We're doing good. We're doing the best we can. You know, if you were in my situation, do you know that there are people on death row that are being put to death for just absolutely heinous things that they have done, and they will say this, well, if you were in my situation, you would have done what I did. It's this justification of like, yeah, you may look at me and think this, but you would have, see what I mean? It's this self-justification thing that we're able to do. And so we have this thing where we believe that we're good based on our actions and the actions that we take. I know I'm good. Look at all the good that I do. I know I must be good. I must be good because look at all the good that I do. And we never stop to ask, why did we do good in the first place? See, do we do good things? Yes, lots of good things. Here's my list. Remember I said, are you generous? Yeah, look at all the things that I do. I must be generous. I do a lot of good things. Am I generous? I must be. I give things away. I must be generous by virtue of what I do. And we don't stop to say, why did I do them? See, the story of Martha, Jesus wasn't kidding. Martha was this probably very powerful lady. She's probably this very influential person in her city. She understood the hierarchy. She understood that Mary was probably stepping out of bounds by sitting and listening to Jesus. There might have been a part of Mary that thought she was doing Jesus a favor by like, hey, you can get rid of her if you want to. we at this home, she was the head of her house. She had a little brother, Lazarus, that must have been way younger, or else he would have been the man of the house. It was not 2019 in the U.S. There's a part of Martha that probably thought, oh, Mary, Jesus, you don't have to teach her. She doesn't understand that we're just women. You got to understand, there's a little part of me that's uncomfortable saying that, even though I'm not, it's not. He doesn't condemn the work that Martha's doing. He's not saying, well, the dishes aren't going to clean themselves, are they? He's not saying, well, hey, I know you're doing a lot of work, but someone's got to do it. He wasn't even, it's not even like he's not even condemning Martha in what he says. If you look at what Jesus says, she goes, are you just going to let me do all this work and let Mary just sit there like she's a man and learn from you as though she's an equal? Are you going to let Mary be generous with herself? I'm over here. I'm being generous with my work. I'm working. I'm being a servant. I'm not like people who sit around and do nothing. I'm working. I'm doing this. I volunteer over there. I give over there. I'm everywhere. Every time you turn around, I'm in the middle of stuff. I share things on Facebook. Jesus is asking us, listen, Martha, Martha, you're worried and upset about many things. He's not talking about what she's doing. He's talking about the state of her heart. He speaks to her heart. He goes, Martha, Martha, personal, intimate. Martha, Martha, I'm not worried about what's going on out here. I'm worried about what's going on in here. You're working and you're running around like crazy, but you're upset and you're worried and you're stressed out and life is chaotic and there's a lot going on with you. See, this is a very different thing. They're like, Martha, settle down. There's concern. There's concern. He's going, Martha, you okay? So he didn't ask. He already knew. He went right past the are you okay? Husbands, can you imagine the advantage if we could just learn that little trick? Are you good? Never do. I'm just saying, like. What he's doing is he has taken Martha and he's kind of like holding her like a daughter. Have you ever grabbed your kids as they run by and their legs keep moving? Like he picks Martha up and she's like, I've got work to do. He's like, Martha, 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 Martha. Hey, you. Right here, right here. You're so stressed out. And there is literally one thing in this world that matters. I'm going to set you down. Don't run into anything. Not ask what you're doing. He didn't ask, what are you doing? He said, why are you doing it? What's the motivation? What's this burning, I gotta do more? Do you know that good actions or obedience or the Christian life, do you realize that's oftentimes is the best method for getting what you want? If you were just bad, it doesn't play well for you in the community. Like if you're just running around causing chaos in other people's lives and being dishonest or being shady or having underhanded business dealings, like, I don't know if you know this or not, there's like, especially in Powell Butte, there's a shelf life. We live in Powell Butte, Oregon. Someone might fight you. If you didn't know that people do that here, sit at the store for a couple hours. We're not the most refined group of people that have ever lived. Sometimes being bad doesn't benefit you, but being good does. Being thought of as good. Oh, saying things like, well, I am so selfless that I buy strangers gas at the gas station. Did you get a picture? Oh, did you get a picture of that? Oh, I'm going to go help these poor people. Come with me and take some pictures. I want everybody to know how good I am. See, sometimes being good is in your self-interest. Sometimes if you're thought of as being really good, oh, I share like deep Bible verses and I share important ministry online. Look how famous I am. Oh, look, we do this. This is why we take pictures with important people when we meet them. Like you meet them, you're like, oh, get a picture. Me and this guy, pretty much the same. Look how important I must be. Because being good can be the most selfish thing that we do. Now, you're like, okay, so being bad is selfish. We know that. but being good can be selfish? Uh-oh. Because now where's the escape? How do we get out of it? Have you ever heard this statement? I love this statement. Be very wary of anyone who thinks their intentions are 100% pure. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to admit this from the pulpit or not. But anybody who tells you, like, my intentions are pure. I mean, listen, we all want that to be true. We all want to believe that deep down we are being selfless. But the truth is, as long as you have a sin nature, as long as there is a sin nature at work in you, which if you want to know, like, do I? Are you breathing? Is your heart beating? Sorry, bad news. Then your intentions are never 100% pure. There's always self at work, at play in those moments. And you go, well, then how do I get? Here's my favorite. My favorite is preachers who are so in love with being in the position of teacher. How's your day, honey? Pretty good. I just taught people all day online. Do you know that I posted 72 updates on my Instagram? That's just personal. That's just mine. You guys have yours. I have mine. If someone teaches from a place of superiority, even if their information is right, they are acting selfishly. It benefits them to be elevated. What we're finding all of a sudden is like, wait a minute, selfishness is inescapable. We are one of two things. We are either selfish and we know it, or we are selfish and we don't know it. We are not 100% generous, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Jesus was addressing Martha's greed, and Martha didn't think she was greedy. You want to really hurt someone's feelings? Accuse them of something when they know you're wrong. Jesus didn't go, Martha, you're greedy, like exactly directly. But what he did was he allowed Martha to see something in her own life that she would have sworn wasn't there. Does that scare anybody today, tonight, this evening, this morning, wherever you are? Does that scare anybody to go, wait a minute? So Martha was being greedy and she didn't even know it? We're capable of being wrong and thinking that we're right? Does that scare anyone besides me? Because right now, I'll be honest with you, I think I'm right about everything. It's a curse. Ask Lacey. She'll tell you. To think that I could be wrong and think that I'm right, and then that Jesus has to come in and point it out. And here's just a side note. Like, if you had no personal agenda, God could never disappoint you. If you've ever felt this moment of disappointment with God, it's because he has somehow tweaked your selfish agenda that you thought you didn't have. Look at me, God. I'm just out here being selfless. I'm in church every day, and I come to church and I give and I volunteer. Look at me, God. Look at all these good things I'm doing. Why are you? What you're saying is, I did all those things, God, because that was what I thought would get me what I wanted. You guys don't seem to hate this sermon as much as I do. Now, here's one. How about when somebody does something really, really good, but they want attention for it? How much does that bug us? Because I know us, I know most of us, I know a lot of us in this room. It bugs me when somebody does good and wants attention for it. They want to be noticed for it. They want something to be put out, like, look at me, look how good I'm doing. It bugs me. That's why when I told you the story about buying someone's gas, even a little part of me is like, oh, I don't even like how that feels. If you're being honest, when I started bragging on myself about buying someone a tank of gas, there's a little part of you who's like, dude. We hate it when someone does something and wants attention for it. And so we think, well, we would never do that. I don't like how you're pretending to be better than everyone else. I'm better than you. Uh-oh. See, if I were to ask, if somebody were to sit at the door this morning and as you come in go, are you a generous person? You go, yeah. God's nature at work in us creates generosity. Do you feel like you're generous? Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Like, I feel like, yeah, like our church makes giving such a big deal. Like, our church gives. It's such a big deal. Like, we make a point to operate in what we believe to be generosity, but if we're not careful, we can hide selfishness behind giving. If I were to say generosity, we all think money. Oh, great, it's a sermon about money. Oh, it's so much worse than that. When we're done here, you'll be begging me for a money sermon. Money? Sure. Easy. It's gone. You're not going to like this. I knew before I started that I was going to be like, oh, that the Bible's going to do that thing that it does. To all you generous people, listen to this. Luke chapter 18, verse 9. To some who are confident in their own righteousness, this is Jesus talking to the Pharisees, and look down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. So he's around people that are like, well, we think the law says this. Well, I shared something last week on mine, that blah, 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 blah. And then, well, I went to this conference. Well, I studied under this person. And Jesus is sitting there and he's like, hey, I got a story. 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. There's so much to this story that I can't get to, but the Pharisees, religious leaders. If they speak, you listen. And then the tax collectors, they were the scum that worked for the Roman Empire. Literally stealing from their own people. They were the worst kind of traitor. So when Jesus said a Pharisee and a tax collector, they're like, okay, so we got one from each end of the scale. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, thank you. Now listen, if I were to call somebody up on stage and I were to go, guys, I just want to publicly thank someone. Bob, come up here. Bob, thank you. And you're like, oh, what did Bob do, right? You're going to thank Bob. Bob must have done something. Hey, Bob, thank you. God, thank you that I'm not like other people. Thank you that I'm not like other people. God, thank you that I'm amazing. Bob, thank you that I'm such a good pastor. God, we just want you to know that we really appreciate how awesome I am, how generous I'm allowed to be with the blessings that you've given me, but not everyone is as generous as me. I'm sure you've noticed. I just don't feel like I get the attention that I deserve, but I'm just out here doing it, you know? God, thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector here. Let me tell you why I'm not, God. Let me tell you, and it sounds so awful, and we do this. Oh, we do this. We've all got like our favorite brand of sinner that we're like, God, oof, can you imagine having to deal with me if I was like that? Mine is, I don't know if I should say that. Mine is pastors. Not all pastors. Listen, majority of the pastors are doing a phenomenal job. On the record, I said it, okay? So but you know the kind that I'm talking about. They're like, and he goes, I fast twice a week and I give 1/10 of all that I get. So wait a minute. How many of you, by a show of hands in front of everyone, don't raise your hands. See, if you were to give 1/10 of everything that came in, you would feel what? Generous. I must be generous. I've said it from this pulpit. You want to know, you ready for my confession? I've said it. I tithe because I feel like that's what I'm called to do. And I don't want money to have control over me. I want freedom from finances. I want to be able to sleep at night knowing that I haven't given money too much power. But do you know what's not being said there? Sometimes I give because I'm selfish. That is hard to say. Because at the same time, I will write a tithe check happily. I've learned to tithe since I was a child. I don't even think about it. Money comes in, 1/10 goes out. Like I'm a giver when it comes to money, but I will sit next to someone on an airplane and put my headphones in and not even look at them. Let me say it this way. I am financially free from the restrictions of greed, I think. But I'm not emotionally generous. I am not personally generous. God has begun to reveal in me that the tithe has bought me an amount of greed. See what I mean? Like, I don't like this. I don't like that because I give my tithe away, that I feel like because of that I'm good. Because the Pharisee would tithe. The Pharisee was giving money away, and I'm like, I do that. But in this story, he's the villain. He thought he was good because he thought he was generous, and he was selfish. While I'm confessing, just so that it doesn't catch you off guard, when someone wants attention but they won't just ask for it, they'll be like, oh, look out, puppy, you're going to walk by this nice man at the airport because everybody flies with dogs. I'm not unintelligent. I know what they're going for. They're wanting me to go, look at your dog. He's so cute. Can I pet him? You're amazing. You want to know what I do? Ignore the situation altogether. I know what you're asking for, and I'm not going to give it. Because I'm a selfish person. I am an emotionally selfish person, and I thought I was generous. And I read the Bible, and sometimes I think that's a mistake. Because it doesn't line up with, okay. No, I do not like the sermon. I hate the sermon so much. Because now, if one of you that I don't recognize sits next to me on an airplane, and you're going to be like, uh-huh. How you doing, Jordan? It's hard. It's hard when you realize, like, God, no, I'm pretty sure I'm generous. And he's like, no, you're not. You give money away. We'll say things like, well, I don't like church as much when it's a video. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what we're saying? I go to church, so I deserve. It's crazy. Heard a guy, you'll hear it. Dan, you're here in Wickenburg. He goes, it's funny that people won't want to watch it on a video. They want to hear it live, but the Bible's a reprint. I literally was like, why did I think of that? Verse 13, but the tax collector stood at a distance. Why did he stand at a distance? Because deep down, he was at least aware of his own. He at least knew who he was. Sometimes when you feel the worst, you are the closest. Sometimes when you feel the worst about yourself, it's not a bad sign, it's a good sign, because maybe what has always been true is now becoming visible. It says he would not even look up to heaven, but he beat his breast and says, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Now, in 2019, the world would give the Pharisee a book deal. And we would put him on TBN, and we'd give him a gold necklace, and we'd give him a perm and a TV show. And we would go, look at all the good things this man does. But thank God, Jesus had the audacity to speak truth into this situation, because we are people and we are gullible, and we as a group, for some reason, not specifically here, actually I think we're pretty good here because we're so much better. I mean, generally speaking, when someone goes, I don't know if you know this or not, I'm amazing, the masses go, oh, okay, you're amazing, then we believe you. The world would have celebrated the Pharisee, and we would have condemned the taxpayer, and we would have gone, or the tax collector, and we would have gone, well, better luck next time. Keep working on it, little buddy. Unless the person of Jesus were present in this story, we would miss it. This is why we need Jesus so badly. Because we can miss it, and Jesus brings light and he brings truth to a situation that we needed. Verse 14 says, I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. It doesn't say justified before people, because Jesus knows we're people, and for some reason we seem to be incurably stupid. Jesus said on that day, one went home closer to God than the other. And it wasn't the person who thought he was good, it was the person who leaned into the goodness of God. He didn't consider himself good. He considered God good. And God said that he went home justified. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Darlene Lancer writes this. It's in Codependency for Dummies. I don't think I have time to read the whole thing, but let me just give you the footnotes. Is that in an addictive relationship where one person is an addict and one person is codependent or an enabler, when someone gets clean, the marriage usually ends for several different reasons, but one of the giant contributing factors is that the person who was needed when the person was an addict no longer feels needed when the broken person begins to get clean. Now think of this. This person is making advances in their life, and this person says, well, then I don't feel needed. And if I don't feel needed, then I don't feel important, and I have to feel important. So the enabling is a demonstration or a manifestation of selfishness. This is not the Bible. This is completely separate. This is from a completely secular study. It says this: they both feel sorry for themselves and blame one another. They have guilt and shame. The underdog, the addict, feels guilty needing help. And the top dog only feels needed when giving it. What's Jesus trying to teach Martha? Martha, you only feel needed when you feel superior. You only feel important in superiority. You work because you earn your superiority, and it earns you attention. You're not generous, you're needy. There's something down in there that needs to earn it, needs to feel important, that needs to need. And Jesus says, I need to heal the need before I can put you back to work, because you can't go back to work until you're okay. It's one of the most loving stories in the Bible where he says, I'm going to give you what? Remember, it's 8 times. The Bible says that God repeats names twice, 8 times in the Bible. And every time it was new life. And so what he's saying is, Martha, I'm going to give you freedom from your religion. You know what's crazy? There's a little part of me in the back of my mind that goes, well, hey, if you let people off the hook for giving, how's the church? There's a little part of us that goes, so God will love me even if I don't give? See, selfishness is always on every angle, no matter how you look at it. Here's what I know. When you fall in love with Jesus, we won't just give. And you know why we give? There's growth. There's expansion. There's things that I want to do. There's places that I want to go. And when I say I want to see what God is doing. There are people that are listening right now to this sermon and going, I never knew that. Maybe you're saying, I never knew that. I want to see things grow, but I don't want to see us feel good about ourselves because we're giving a lot of money. I want to know that Jesus sees us and that we see Jesus and that we don't lean into our own goodness. That's religion. That we lean into the goodness of God, and when we feel the truth about ourselves of like, then we go, God, you're good. Help me. Save me. Rescue me. Give me new life. You can't stop the selfishness on your own. It's only through new life that greed loses its grip. Can I say that again? It's got to be new life before greed can lose its grip. I think that when you look at the story of Martha, it wasn't the work. Listen, it wasn't the work that was condemned. It wasn't Martha that was condemned. It was the thought of, I have to earn it. I have to. You know, Martha was probably the one that paid the bills in this house. When you look at the position that she held, you look at the fact that they were in her house, like there's so much about Martha that says that she was probably used to the weight of the world being directly on her shoulders. She was the one who was used to carrying the cross for the whole family. She had a little brother that she had to provide for. She was in this very male-driven, male-dominated society, and she was trying to work out a living. And I don't know if you know this or not, men, but there are times where we will let women work harder than they should. And then it becomes the standard, and then we get used to it, and then we lose our gratitude for it. What Jesus was saying to Martha is, Martha, you're giving me a lot of effort. But Mary just said, here, you can just have me. You gave me your effort. Mary gave me herself, and that's what's needed. Now, if you think you're doing good, we're going to wrap this up. If you think you're doing good, the next time you do something nice for someone and you think no one's watching, measure on a timer how quickly it takes before you're like, God, did you see that? You won't say it because we're way too spiritual for that. But we are ingrained with selfishness, and we are ingrained with greed and self-serving, and sometimes our good actions are the best avenue for getting what we want. And what Jesus is teaching us when he says, Martha, Martha, is like, let me just heal you of that. Let me keep healing you of that. Let's see if there's some generosity there that could happen once you felt like you were fulfilled, that you're giving from the excess, not giving from a deficit. Like there's a deficit, so you're trying to earn it, make up the difference, and Jesus is going, hey, this morning, this evening, wherever you're at, on the couch, in a church, wherever you're at, that Jesus is saying your name twice. He says your name. He just picks you up. Hey, you. I love you. I love you. And if you sit down and you take a nap, I'm going to love you. And if you work hard, I'm going to love you. And if you give, I'm going to love you. And if you're working through greed, I'm going to love you. I've said it before. I'm going to end it with this. I've said it before. I tell my kids all the time, there's nothing they could do that would make me love them less. But that's only half of it. This is a learned thing. This is what God has taught me in my life. The second half of that is this. There's nothing that we can do that would make God love us more either. The love that God has for us is full and it's complete. It's all-encompassing, and you are invited to be a part of that. Just like the tax collector who's like, ha, me? Even me? And God goes, especially you. Especially because at least you see it. At least you see, at least you understand it. Let's pray. God, in our own lives, I pray that you would begin to make us aware of areas where we have kind of turned inward. I admitted it to everyone. I know I've already admitted it to you, but I'll admit it again. Like, God, there's places in my life I thought I was way more genuinely outward thinking. I thought I was. God, that's the miracle of your word, is that you can come in and reveal us to ourselves in ways that we didn't understand. God, that we're not generous when we give because it's the rules. It's not generosity when we give because we know that that's what's expected and that you'll bless us and all the things that, God, that's just another avenue for self. God, the only way as people that we can become generous people is to accept the love that you've given us. That's the only way. We cannot begin to genuinely love others until we accept that you have genuinely loved us. Lord, that we accept you into our lives. That's what we're asking, that we accept your righteousness. God, give us your goodness. Give us your righteousness in exchange for this life that we've tried to manage for too long. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.